Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you everybody for joining this web event, The Economic Impact of GDPR Automation, Balancing Compliance and Business Value. My name is Dagmar Hillmeister. I'm Data Governance Specialist at Informatica, and I'm very pleased to bring to you two more guests today. I'm joined by two colleagues, Alexander Palmgren and Olaf Kecksel. Alexander and Olaf, would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is Alexander. I'm working for PETA. I spend most of my time consulting enterprises and our ecosystem partners on how to benefit from the GDPR. As you will hear today, there's a lot gained in automating GDPR activities. And over to you, Olaf.
Yeah, thanks, Alexander. Olaf Kecksel. I work as a solution architect at Informatica for more than 6 years, and I'm consulting and supporting our sales organization and our customers in finding the best solution to address problems or challenges like GDPR.
So, thank you both. So many companies have made a real effort to become GDPR ready and compliant, and found out that this is very demanding with all the manual processes involved. Now, with the date May 25th passed by, to avoid substantial penalties, all GDPR requirements have to be put in practice quickly now. However, GDPR compliance is a wide-ranging task and impacts the entire organization. Since there's potentially a lot of work to do, companies realized that if they are to stay compliant, they need to automate the procedures and the way to secure their GDPR posture. So in this session, we will discuss how automation of GDPR processes can help to comply with the GDPR faster. We will get in some of the details around all the different pillars of value and return on investment that exists with GDPR automation, and provide you tools that you can use in modeling out your ROI in your own experience of GDPR automation. And we will also hear from some use cases how these companies have done it. GDPR sets out 7 key principles. You see these listed here. Why are these principles important? These principles lie at the heart of the GDPR. They don't give hard and fast rules, but rather embody the spirit of the general data protection regime, and as such there are very limited exceptions. Compliance with the spirit of these key principles is therefore a fundamental building block for good data protection practice. It is also key to your compliance with the detailed provisions of the GDPR. Each organization must consider what obligations they may or may not need to meet the unique and given circumstances of their business and their use of data. The GDPR combines legacy and newer data privacy requirements. Organizations may already have a subset of these in place. Therefore, some requirements may simply need adjusting of an existing implementation, while others may need a new effort. So let's look at the drivers for GDPR automation first, and then how automation of GDPR processes can help to comply with the GDPR faster. And in that context, let's look at some use cases. Privacy is a fundamental right for EU citizens and is increasingly important in the digital age. GDPR requires that organizations fully consider the risks that processing poses to the fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals. Although the concept of risk runs throughout the GDPR, it is not specifically defined. Examples cited in the regulations that are more likely to result in a high risk include systematic automated profiling, large-scale monitoring of sensitive data, just to name 2 of them. However, it is important to remember that risk needs to be determined in the specific context of your own operations, and there is no one-size-fits-all list. You need to consider in particular how you engage in one or the other activities. A pro-privacy organizational culture is the best starting point for mitigating. More specifically, you can implement specific suitable technical measures such as obtain data subject content, encryption to improve security, or protection against data breach, but also get procedures in place in case of data breach notification. Having mitigated the risk will impact companies' credibility against customers and employees. So it will impact the trust customers and employees have in your companies. GDPR impacts the entire organization, might it be in staffing and workload, the throughput and volume, output quality, supply. So it has an impact on productivity. And not to forget, the GDPR has clauses that specify and impose fines for non-compliance. And the fines alone do not represent the financial implications. Costs for detection and escalation, notification, costs for post-response, and lost business also need to be taken into aspect. All this is direct business impacting motivation to address data privacy in general. So how much risk mitigation could you achieve and how much time and money could you be saving with GDPR automation? Not only does automation software eliminate the need to add staff, but it also reduces errors, lowers operational costs, and increases output with added capacity. And, most important, automation enables the business to stay compliant. So let's look at the first use case. Telia is a telco operator founded in 1853, operating in the Nordic and Baltic countries. Telia is affected by the new European legislation, GDPR. As part of becoming compliant, they realized that they don't have time to perform their search of sensitive data in a traditional way. On top of that, they needed an automated way of masking their data within their test data environment. So they had a need for an integrated sensitive data discovery and protection solution. By doing the automation with Informatica Secured Source and persistent data masking, this solution package helps Telia finding their sensitive customer data throughout their organization. With that insight, Telia is creating now a factory that will anonymize all that data within their test environments. Here you can see the visible outcome of scanning systems and sensitive data. It is a portal for for example, security officer. It automates the discovery of sensitive data across large number of databases, of file stores, big data repositories, whatever might there be, or cloud data stores. It uses flexible, high-performance, scalable scanning to uncover sensitive data and shows the results quickly and clearly. Let's look at another use case. GameThis operates and develops online gaming from casino through to platform offerings. The business has attracted 25 million players around the world, and as a B2C technology provider, customer data is at the heart of the organization's ability to generate and grow revenue. Having these 25 million players, a significant concern was raised around supporting GDPR compliance and have mechanisms in place to discover, understand, and govern the data. Having process maps with Informatica Axon in place and overlays, they could meet the contextualization requirements needed for the GDPR landscape, and the integration with an enterprise data catalog enables effective collaboration between business and IT to meet all GDPR and reporting requirements. As GAMESYS is dependent on the user data, so they have to live up to the requirements set forth in the GDPR, being able to document the flow of the data through GAMESYS processing, but also address who and which system interacts with the data flowing. So here you can see an example of the system lineage. It displays the system objects and how information flows across them. The next picture, the next slide, shows the data lineage, which displays data set objects and also how information flows across them. You can see labels for both the system names and the dataset name with searchable dataset reference number. You can also place additional information on the map in the form of an information box above each object. We call this overlay. There are data as well as business overlays available, and you can see the stakeholders, the processes, projects, policies. You can see the status of the data quality and also the business glossary. And I show you an example of a stakeholder overlay. So the responsible people for each system can easily be identified. Critical stakeholders are aligned with the data elements and the processes that they own. And you can go even a step further with integrating the business view and the technical view. So what is documented and enforced in Axon from the business view side is validated in the enterprise data catalog and then recommended back to the business people in using Axon. With over 300 years of experience, this customer here is one of the first insurance groups at the international level and is one of the leading providers of life and general insurance. The business needs they had is that markets and regulators increasingly require them to exploit the information assets within the enterprise. And in addition, with its overall data governance and data quality strategy, the customer needed to collect the data necessary to complete and maintain the register of processing activities as requested by the GDPR. And furthermore, they needed to create a single and centralized repository in order to explore and govern the data available in the best way. So the challenge was the creation of an IT data register, which allows to take a census from the physical and logical data and to collect the information needed for the creation of the register of processing activities. So currently, quite a lot of records, more than several thousand records have been uploaded, and for each record, 25 fields have been considered. In this phase, there was a close collaboration with the IT department. This was directly involved. In a second step, the model for filling the register of processing activities started. And in this process, 92 processing activities and 67 fields have been involved, collecting and organizing the information in a single repository. At this stage, the data privacy officer defines the guidelines and the project specifications. With Axon as central location of documentation, the customer is now able to meet the requests of the legislation, leveraging on the data governance strategy. In addition, they now have a single repository which is centralized, reliable and robust for the management of personal information within the company. All information is unique and organized, and the risk of redundancies and inefficiencies have been reduced. Data can be explored in 360 degrees with an end-to-end view of what happens in the enterprise. In a broader data governance strategy of this customer, this is the first step for a structured data management initiative in the company. And I'll show you an example of the single repository. The business glossary here is a facet in Axon, and it allows business and IT stewards to capture and share the full business context around critical data. Some organizations simply manage their shared definitions in Word documents or spreadsheets, an approach that typically focuses on the terms and definitions but misses the broader context. A packaged business glossary enables collaboration across the business and IT roles that create, approve, and consume these definitions. This minimizes the risk of redundancy, definition stagnation, and versioning conflicts. A good business glossary should also provide access capabilities that enable sharing of the business vocabulary across the organization. A common business vocabulary that is not available to everybody all the time has limited value. And you can go a step forward. Furthermore, the organization's chief risk officer may have issued governance, risk, and compliance policies, information security or data privacy policies, and any number of policies to ensure compliance with external government and industry regulations. Scoping and defining policies in the business glossary to document and implement can begin by reconciling which existing policies should be owned, which policies should simply be recognized and complied with, and which policies should be replaced. Regardless of the size or industry, every organization is battling to effectively manage data that's generated from the constant interactions from multiple data sources, types, locations, and frequencies. Data quality issues continue to be among the top 3 barriers for effective use of data for strategic planning, decision-making, and execution. Poor data quality poses a significant problem for organizations today, as it leads to negative customer experiences, reduced employee productivity, delay in deploying new systems, lost revenues, increased marketing costs, and audit and regulatory non-compliance. So data accuracy is really a key challenge. And let's look how the next customer has solved this. Rabobank is a multinational banking and financial services company headquartered in the Netherlands. The organization is a global leader in food and agricultural financing and sustainability-oriented banking. Rabobank's enterprise-wide digital transformation strategy reflects the growing appetite among customers for digital services such as online and mobile banking and much more. And one of the bank's goals was for 80% of all the business to consumer banking services to be delivered through unattended self-service channels within 4 years. To achieve this, Rabobank wanted to improve the quality of its data with governed, consistent data across the organization, and also to comply with data privacy and data retention regulations. So improving the quality of the data resulted in automated processes for data cleansing and consistent distribution of high quality data to all systems, enhanced customer experience by reducing the number of terminated or abandoned online applications. And the organization and visibility provided with the complete data integration enabled Rabobank to be one of the first banks to comply with the new EU regulations. In conjunction with the rediscovery of data, an integration with data quality automation allows to easily visualize, measure and monitor the quality of the data you rely on. Here you can see results of a data quality measurement across all systems. You see IQ dimensions like validity, accuracy, completeness, consistency and timeliness. And this and much more can be measured in the data quality. And this you cannot do for all systems, but also, of course, for just one system. You see an example here. And you can take a look at each result of a data quality measurement. The measurement itself is done in Informatica data quality. So the data steward, the business user, can see everything via the business portal here, Axon. The principle that you do not collect more personal data than you need is a matter of respect and good governance. However, it may have been ignored in the past with departments collecting as much data as possible, just in case it is useful in the future. This will no longer be permissible, and organizations will also need to review the personal data they already hold with an attitude of, if we don't need it, we don't keep it. Automation for maintaining inventories and archiving needs to be implemented. An enterprise data catalog provides business and IT users with the power to easily find the data and manage the life cycle of the data, of the business terms, definitions, reference data, and much more. And due to the challenges of managing compliance for the data, automation can free you from the limitation to hold that data indefinitely by aligning with regulatory compliance and data governance initiatives. An appropriate solution to archive the data provides audit logs, purchase data, and manages retention policies and legal holds. So with an enterprise data catalog and archiving, you can enforce data compliance by managing the entire life cycle of data from creation to end of life, and enforce data retention policies and compliance with data governance initiatives and government regulations such as GDPR. Here you can see an example of a customer master. Find the data that matters. You get a holistic view of data in a knowledge graph that lets you quickly search, discover, and understand the enterprise data and meaningful data relationships. Automatically discover related data sets, technical, business, semantic, and usage-based relationships. Organizations today will consider carefully how they construct their public-facing privacy policies to provide more detailed information. It will no longer be good enough to hide behind pages of legalese. In GDPR, consent is not just an opt-in, opt-out flag. It needs to provide, you all know this, the purpose for which the contact was collected, the why, the time needed for which the data is stored for that purpose, and what data needs to be collected for that purpose. The challenge which is existing, where to manage the consent, and further questions, how to manage right of access by the data subject and the right of rectification and erasure. It needs to have an automation in place to manage the life cycle of the data, including archiving and deletion of data. It needs, for example, processes in place to refresh consent at appropriate intervals, including any parental consent, act on withdrawals of consent short-term, and regularly review consent to check that the relationship, the processing, and the purposes have not changed. A master data management provides all these abilities. And I'll show you some screenshots here. You can see here you have a complete 360-degree view of this customer. And I can see that he has one address, one phone number, 2 names, and 2 email addresses. I can also see that the person exists both in the CRM and the billing system, and I can see that he has accepted 4 consent policies. When I take a further look, for the electronic address, there are 2 different emails. And I can see that the email, the first email address, can be used for advertising, information, and newsletters. And the other email can only be used for invoicing purposes. GDPR is reshaping the way organizations must think about personal data privacy. Information security is explicit to GDPR. Without it, personal data cannot reliably be kept private. Much of the GDPR is descriptive rather than prescriptive. It tells you what should happen, now, not how to do it. Fortunately, there is software available to help organizations to do a better job of information management. The paramount question the GDPR poses to security practitioners is not what checklist of measures must I follow to pass an audit. Instead, the paramount question is, how do we avoid a breach? Breaches cost money. And a notification of a breach can trigger a chain reaction of invasive and expensive legal, political, and news media investigations into the organization's data security practices. Let's look at another example. The customer here provides medical devices and cutting-edge cloud-based software applications that better diagnose, treat, and manage sleep apnea, chronic obstructive disease, and other chronic diseases. They needed a global line of business leaders was concerned about achieving and maintaining compliance with the European Union General Data Protection Regulations. The global nature of the business requires analysts from around the globe to understand access and use of GDPR data. They need to identify users who should not have access to EU citizens' PII and PHA data, and track data risk and movement for new threats to GDPR compliance. Using automation solved all the GDPR concerns. Using automation of using data masking and finding sensitive data, analyzing data, solved all the GDPR concerns. And you see this here. This is a collection of, I've put this here on one slide, collection of screens of information you get with the, when you do security automation. You can see sensitive data, you can see user activity and data movement, and of course you can also detect anomalies. Let's take a look at the use case of data masking. The customer here is a commercial bank which is to serve the local economy, small and medium enterprises and the community. They need to protect data used in development and testing and avoid data exposure. They want to mask sensitive data according to the security policies before new production data is imported into development and testing environments, and also mask the projection data used for testing based on expressed regulatory department requirements. So they had to ensure that legacy data meets the requirements of new application testing and that core data in the production environment is synchronized. They wanted to avoid data masking with low efficiency, heavy workload and poor accuracy, and improve the time and effort it takes for full data masking, since existing tools could not be used for incremental data processing. In using automated data masking from Informatica, they could customize their data, all the data that achieved sensitive data protection. They improved security and confidentiality levels and reduced the data exposure in non-production environments. They generated high-quality test data, and they ensured compliance with industry regulatory data privacy laws and regulations. We've now looked at quite some use cases and how automation can help, and I will pass on now to Alexander to talk a bit about how GDPR process automation can balance compliance and business value. Alexander.
Thank you, Dagmar, for a very comprehensive walkthrough. What Dagmar just presented is what we hear from a lot of the companies that we are working with. And what I normally tell them is we have to remember that it's not that we can't use consumer data anymore. We just need to follow new rules on how to administer and respect the data and their owners. So what we are proposing is creating a framework for how to deliver compliance with GDPR actually gives you a platform to enable further growth and to accelerate time to market. Having seen numerous and diverse markets, hundreds of data sources, and to comply with GDPR is, in general, a very big and core challenge for enterprises, especially when you seek to compete with agile, data-driven competitors. We all see companies that want to digitalize, and they need to streamline their processes. And the best way to do so is through automation, because this optimizes their cost, it increases revenue opportunities, and they stay compliant. Creating this platform, and you will be able to report on compliance. Like, what you have to know is the data protection authority, when they are approaching you, and they will at a certain point if you are dealing with data from consumers. The first thing they will do is come with a query, and the best thing you can do is actually show them that you are in control, and the best way to do so is to show them the report. And you've seen examples of reportings on how you can be compliant and your GDPR readiness. The best thing about this kind of platform is that, of course, it will integrate into your CM solution, so that in cases of breaches, you have all the right information that you can deliver within the 72 hours window that you have to come up with all these information. If you at the same time can also show that you have pictured all your data privacy impact assessments, and you made a process for that, that's the data lineage that Dagmar was referring to later, early on. You can also show we have control of the right to be forgotten. And we can do this automatically. I have been working with a lot of companies that have done all this manually to get compliant by the 25th of May. And right now they see that they cannot continue like that. They really need a framework, a platform that they can rely on with respect to their data and how to protect it. So, besides that you get all the compliance values that we've been through, you also ease the way of working. You minimize the OPEX in terms of operative costs and expenses. And in general, we can see that if you reduce costs and you increase your productivity, you do that not only within GDPR, but you can actually expand that to other areas within your company. Because you might have several regulatory regimes like Solvency II or IFRS 9, or other levels of need for transparency in your data processing. It could also be in the pharmaceutical part. IDMP is one of the things that we will see coming in, like pharma is very soon to be struck with a similar to GDPR. And here, having already produced a platform, you can use it for that as well. We've been working on many companies doing this, and what we see is that there is a benefit across the lots in each company. So that also means you'll be able to have access to cross-lot funding within the company, which actually makes it fun to work with projects like this because you actually get benefits across the whole company. For specific ROI on any kind of project like this, feel free to approach me after this webinar. We are ready to do this at any time. We cover most of Nordic, France, and Baltics, so at any point, please get back to us. And this is Alexander, and over to Olaf.
Yes, thank you. So going a little bit further to, let's say, the product view of GDPR. Informatica as a software vendor, we are providing different modules for the different requirements, as you heard from Dagmar. So it cannot be solved with just a single product because any module that we are offering is addressing certain needs. So I framed all boxes around the product and solution that we are offering that fit very much to the requirements of GDPR. If you think about the top left-hand box on the solution level, the enterprise data governance solution that we are providing, which is Axon, is for the business users. The business users define how things should be, who is responsible, how the policies are, relationships, etc., from a clear business viewpoint. The Customer 360 next to it is a predefined solution containing consent data elements based on our MDM product. So with this Customer 360, you have all the predefined elements to make it easy to manage all your consents, all your consent elements, all your consent policies for the actual data for each individual customer. Secure at Source on the very right on the solution level is also an out-of-the-box solution which is able to scan all your applications for sensitive data and has already predefined rules and predefined algorithms to identify all this sensitive data, visualize it. It's really an out-of-the-box solution, and that Secure at Source uses technology out of the enterprise data catalog. Going the level down on the product level, you see data quality, MDM, enterprise data quality, enterprise data catalog, and data security. These are all platform technologies that you could use, that are used for the solutions as well, but they need configuration. All the scanning, as an example, an enterprise data catalog has a lot of scanners to scan application databases for metadata and puts it all into centralized data catalog, which is able to search and visualize the things. But you need to set up the scanners, and it needs configuration where secure at source, everything comes out of the box. The master data management, data quality components are really around the data itself, and not about the metadata, but the data itself, the records. You collect data from various sources, put it into central MDM, and then maintain all your consents. The technology, every module that you see on this slide is based on common technology. And one of the main things I would like to highlight is CLAIRE. CLAIRE is a new artificial intelligence component of Informatica that we put in each and every of our products and solutions. Instead of just having predefined algorithms that are very deterministic, CLAIRE helps you identify things that you don't know in advance. As an example, identifying certain dependencies on data, identifying certain sensitive data that you don't see obviously, recommending to do what with the data, recommending data quality rules, recommending matching rules, give you alarms around consent policies. That is all around CLAIRE. Every component that we have as monitoring, managing, connectivity, and so on. So the Informatica product portfolio is also very flexible. It doesn't rely on a certain database. We can connect each and every document. Big data, we can integrate all the various platforms. We have cloud support, applications, etc. So that is the flexibility of Informatica compared to other vendors which are very much locked into a certain technology when it comes to a database, as an example. So, and CLAIRE sits really, that is our strategic direction when it comes to provide more than just deterministic algorithms. So with this one, I'd like to hand it back over to Dagmar and open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Olaf. So if there are any questions, you know that you can type these in the question mark bar, and we have one question here asking, well, do I have to implement all the modules to become GDPR compliant? As mentioned in the beginning, each enterprise has its own specific circumstances, and you need to see what you have already done with regard or completed with regard to GDPR and what still needs to be done. So you have, with our modules, you really have the advantage of sizing it according to your needs. So just take a closer look at data quality, at data masking, or encryption, or consent management, whatever there might be. You can see the corresponding module which we can put in place. So, any other questions? With regard to, there is one with regard to data quality rules. Data quality, is it going down to field level? Can I define it to field level, or is it at record level? Of course, you can define data quality down to each field. You have a very strong, in addition, you have a very strong business rules engine built in, which allows you to create from very simple rules up to the most sophisticated rules. And with that, I would like to thank you for listening. In case there are any more questions, you have the possibility to let us know, and just write us, and I wish you a very nice day. Thank you.